I am Kate Byrne. I am the Tech for Good chair and program advisor, and that's at night. And by day, I'm the co-founder of the Toolbox. Beep, beep. My business partner at the end, hence the beep, beep. But you'll be doing it too. On behalf of TomTom, I'm so excited for this conversation not to begin, but just to even occur, and everything that's going to happen as a result of what happens over this next 2 to 3 hours. Seriously, this is a population that if we do not get more women founders funded and more female funders investing, kind of game over, I'm just saying, seriously. And why? It is good business sense. I won't do the speeds and feeds and texts and bytes and give all the data points because I have said them so many times. But it's good business, but the reason why is because there's a return on both impact and investment. So there has been such research about the fact that when you give women money, the entire community, all ships seriously rise. So I would like, before I hand it off to Aurelia, I just want to say one last thing. And it's a mantra. Oh, Kara, sorry. I forget. It's been a long day for me. I just want everyone in this room, when you feel that kind of niggling little idea in your head that, do I really belong? Am I supposed to really be here? Just you go, pip, pip, and you tell that little voice, and remember that you belong on the call. You belong in the room, you belong in the meeting, and you belong at that table. And if you don't like the table, build your own. And with that, for you.
Thank you so much, Kate. So thank you all for coming. I'm not going to talk to you too much right now, but I do want to highlight that this is a 2-part session. You are not obligated to stay for the second part, but highly encouraged. Now, of course, this first part, we're focusing on the investor side of the ecosystem. Second part, we're focusing on the founder side, the startup side. They really can't exist without each other. So that's why we're really excited to be able to include both of these in sort of one mega session. In between these 2 sessions, we're going to have a break. I'm sure you've all seen we have an open bar, we have snacks, feel free to mingle. That is one of the most important parts of events like this, you guys meeting each other. So this is our 4th Women on the Rise event. This is the first one we've done in collaboration with TomTom, so we're really excited to be able to share this, share our founder pitches, and this whole new piece, sharing stories from women investors in the network. So for this first session, Aurelia Flores will be our moderator, and she is a powerhouse, so involved in the startup community. She is, of course, at Vipsy and is an investment director there, but she's also the co-founder of an angel group called Citrine Angels, which focuses on female founders in particular. So lots of good stuff to come. I'll pass it off to her, and she can share more information about the rest of the panel.
Well, like Kara and others have said, it is a late afternoon, so we're going to be really, really exciting today. No pressure. No, I am really honored to moderate this panel of women investors. And, you know, we've heard a lot about women founders and how much they receive in the venture space as a percentage of venture dollars. What you may not know is that 0.7% of all AUM in the US, so assets under management, 0.7% are managed by women. So, you know, as we go up the capital stack, things get worse, but that's why it's awesome to hear from women who are doing what needs to be done and how they're doing it and how we're gonna change that. So, we're gonna talk about how these women got to their places and locations and what they've learned along the way. So we're gonna do a quick introduction first. They all took a non-traditional road to being investors, which we'll learn about. And although we're all women, we don't only invest in women. And we're gonna talk about investing as part of a larger mission, investing as personal growth, and then collaborating and supporting others. So if you have questions about any of those things, or you want to talk about any of those things, get your questions ready. All right, before we dive in and do intros, can I just get a set of hands? Who in the room are founders, just so we have a sense? Yay, congratulations, thanks for being here. Who are funders? Who are investors in the room? Awesome. And you're not a funder or a founder. Can you raise your hand just so we have a sense of who else is here? Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. Let's start with our VC in the room, Meg. I'm going to let you tell us who you are, where you invest, and why.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for having me. And this is such an important conversation, and I'm very, very lucky to be a part of it. I'm Meg Vorland. I am the co-founder and chief revenue officer at an advisory firm called Decode. And we built a venture capital firm on top. So we invest in late A's and B's, predominantly in companies that have dual use technology. So companies that are private sector first, that are going after the private sector, but then also have a either military or federal civilian use case that we believe that we can help them spur on. We're still in the process of raising, but I can say that because of our SEC codes, we're great. But we're still in the process of raising a $30 million fund, but we've gotten 22 in the door. Thank you. We're really proud of that because as those funders in the room know, it is an awful fundraising environment. So it may have been a really bad idea or a bad time to start. But we have gotten 22 million in the door, and JP Morgan is one of our, the Spark Fund is one of our backers. So that is a little bit about Decode Capital, and where we invest.
Okay, we're going to go over to the family office next.
Hi, my name is Heidi Nell. I am the Chief Operating Officer of New Theory Ventures, a family office with 150 million of assets under management. We're part venture, part philanthropy, part wealth management, and all of the other things that family offices do. Our thesis on both the venture and philanthropic side is women. We believe in sort of all of the things that probably everybody in this room believes in, that Kate started earlier, that women have, A, we outperform our counterparts, but B, we have a unique ability to drive a return on purpose and a return on profit. And as a result, 90% of our venture portfolio is women founded.
And now, Viola, both a founder and a funder. Tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, my story sits at the nexus of a misspent teenage life and the day I ran into a very wealthy playboy who gave me his Amex and said, "Start this investment company in the life insurance investment space." So I Googled it and somehow cobbled together a team and built an insurance investment fund with 500 million assets under management. And on a Tuesday, gave him the finger and walked away because he'd reduced me to a doxy-grabbing pimpette of every single blonde chick seen would be acquired while I also managed the back office. So having walked away, I started my own company by mistake, did well, then left, and here we are.
All right, that was really fun to hear. And tell us a little bit about who you funded, and tell us about your fundraising journey as well.
Well, after that Tuesday, when I went home and danced madly to Duran Duran for 3 days looking for a good idea, fast forward, I met an individual who became my business partner, and we both said, let's take advantage of the Jobs Act, run off to Africa where my parents are from Cameroon, but I was born in the UK, hence this vocal infection called my accent. And we got it all wrong because we asked the wrong questions. What we ended up doing was accidentally becoming an alternative trade and finance investment using tribal and cultural data in algorithms in ways that had never been seen before, because you can't just assume that all Africans are the same. So by dissecting that market in such a way, we began to fund those businesses that were involved in the buying and selling of goods by burying the risk that is associated with lending into a hard asset. And that was how we ended up funding a lot of businesses. And most people look at Africans and think, these little black people need small amounts of money. And everybody thinks, oh, you're in microfinance. Well, microfinance keeps you tiny. But we want the continent to grow and dominate. Yes, I did say dominant. And we ended up funding people to the tune of about $500,000 per transaction with such a low default rate that it attracted a lot of attention. So it's alternative trade and finance, a lot of women in that portfolio. And that's how we ended up doing that.
Awesome. So we've got a lot to hear about today. Let's see. I guess I should give a little bit of my background in addition to co-founding Citrine Angels, which is an angel group of women investing in women. I also work at Virginia Innovation Partnership Corporation, where I do direct investing, and I'm also part of the team that's investing in fund managers, so I'm also an LP. All right. Investing as part of a larger mission. Each one of you said that for you, investing was not simply about making money for your investors. There was something else behind what you were doing and how you were doing it. Heidi, talk to us about why you invest and what it means to you.
Yeah, I started my journey in the advocacy and philanthropy space, spent the first part of my career in Los Angeles in entertainment, and sort of the bulk of my career have been known as some version of a social impact strategist. For me, it's definitely about making money. And I say that to say what I realized on my journey in philanthropy is that philanthropy is important and necessary, but alone it's unsustainable. And whether we like it or not, we live in a capitalist society. And if we're not making money, typically those things are on the chopping block. So as somebody who cares about social impact, scaling social change, I moved into venture into the family office to partner with our founder and CEO because we wanted to put these kind of social impact principles, if you will, at the core of different business models. And for different founders and investments that we make, that looks differently in each one. I would say net for me, it's about increasing women's economic participation, making women more wealthy, and ultimately giving women agency to call the shots, both in their own lives, but at the macro level. I think we're in a sort of unique point in time where, we can and we should have more women in the boardroom, more women in the C-suite, more women in Congress. But at the end of the day, if women don't have the same economic power as men in this country, we'll always be at the mercy of their decision making. So for me, that's my driving factor when I go to work every day.
And I think one of the things that was so interesting when we were preparing, as you said, if you want things to move fast and scale, business needs to be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely, right? I mean, you can just, even in sort of like a microcosm, look at all of the corporations who have had to do layoffs over the last 18 to 24 months, and it's non-revenue generating portions of businesses that get cut first. You look at nonprofits that thrive in, upturns and downturns, and it's nonprofits that have revenue generating models built into them that can scale further and faster. So for me, it was a lot about applying the same methodologies that I used in entertainment and having movies that matter, sort of scale change, but taking that over and saying, okay, what are the different components? For some people, it's B Corp, right? That's a pretty sort of standardized and rigorous way to achieve social and environmental impact outcomes. For some people, it's diversity, equity, inclusivity, and justice, right? Like, who's the team? Who are we serving? I think for every company, it looks different, but it has to be baked into a business model if it is going to sustain and kind of weather different financial storms.
So different tools in the toolbox. Awesome. Meg, you talked about ensuring access, implementing, and scaling tech to solve challenges.
Yeah. So we come at our mission impact from a slightly different angle, but I think I can tie some of this together too. Of my two other GPs in my fund are both females. I don't have to tell probably this room the statistics that we are more likely to fund more women, more people of color, more people, a broader range of the population than many other. We do have a funnel problem. So if I'm investing in late A's, B's, and C's, I need to ensure that the folks that are investing in the seed Series A phases are investing in similar type with similar type ethos around this. But at the end of the day, we are a team of folks that are extremely passionate about access to the best technology in the U.S. federal government. I cut my teeth at the Small Business Administration, both a wonderful place to cut your teeth, but also ran into a bazillion challenges. So I joke that, I fell into entrepreneurship because when I was at the U.S. Small Business Administration, we couldn't get anything done. We had I was working for the chief operating officer. She was a total badass, if I can say that. She was. She is. She's not dead. But she was amazing. But she oversaw the budget. She oversaw contracting, so how the money flows through, and she oversaw the IT stack. And we still couldn't get good tech in the door. So the barriers were really, really high. And so seeing that over and over again, and a lot of the folks that have come to work for our advisory firm are also very, very passionate about national security, the mission, making sure that we have that our warfighters are safe, that they're able to see around corners, and I think that is really what drives a lot of our investing and a lot of our impact, is ensuring that our national security can keep up, and not only that, but that even once amazing investors, there's a lot of investors investing in national security. One of them is here. Many of them are also here. But when it comes down to it, we don't just need people investing in it. We also need our U.S. federal government, our Department of Defense, our federal civilian agencies to be actually taking in this technology and using it. And so we are really, really passionate about ensuring that not only those companies are going to be able to be funded, but they're also going to be handheld along the way in a really, really tough, highly regulated market, so that they're able to be successful. And ultimately, the outcomes are, freedom, guys. But no big deal. I'm just, amazing point. But we see alpha in this. So we are investing not just because we feel really good about national security, but because there is a significant gap in investment in this space, and there's a significant gap in making sure that those companies get in. So we see pretty significant returns, and we're hoping for pretty significant returns along the way. So it is financial for sure, but we're doing it through the lens of mission.
Right, so both financial and mission, not mutually exclusive. And Viola, you are funding businesses for women in the trades in sub-Saharan Africa, and amazing returns, right? Talk to us about that.
I really just wanted to find a way to remove the guilt of being part of the African diaspora, because it's very easy to live outside the borders of Africa and say, I've got it just fine here and I'm not going to disrupt that. So upon arrival, asking the question, why don't banks solve the issue of financial inclusion, I had to change the questions I was asking, and I had to take a look at who's upholding GDP. And it was definitely women and trade. And these women knew so much about their business, but between the issues of post-colonial languages and the assumption that everybody speaks French, English, and Arabic, I knew that that had to be resolved. And I also understood that I didn't want to do banking, so what's the other way to drive finance and create that velocity of capital? It's looking at where goods are moving. So I felt very strongly that by making sure that people had access to good quality inventory and had a way of learning financial literacy along the way, I could ensure that the performance of these businesses with the money I was raising from investors would be handled responsibly. I'm going to be very honest here. When you're black with other people's money in your hands, there are so many eyes on you. You dare not mess up. But that creates a psychological dissonance, especially if you're a woman. You might veer towards being terribly careful which will completely subjugate your returns. Or you can do the opposite, which is say, I'm going to put my humanity in the shoes of these people, and I'm going to figure out how would I do it if all things were equal. So the returns were averaging between 7.5 and 16.7% net of taxes. Amazing, outstanding returns, because there were zero defaults, because we'd accidentally become an Islamic finance solution. Didn't want to do banking, not charging interest, using fees, creating a delta between the price of what you buy and what you sell, and resolving the main issue of trade, which is where do you put all the inventory? The answer is empty cocoa and coffee warehouses that are seasonally empty in order to create the Airbnb of warehouses. That way, individuals who have never had more than a certain amount of inventory can now experience what it is like to be able to have more. So that's how we were able to drive financial inclusion, returns to investors, and help women. And it was an exciting opportunity. By the way, this was all in Cameroon and Central Africa.
So I'm hearing a lot of opportunity inside of mission, creativity, white space, just lots and lots of really interesting things. And lest she doesn't tell you, in 2018, Viola was one of only 13 Black women who had raised over $1 million for tech innovation. So yes, please. All right, so let's talk about investing as personal growth. So we're doing it for others, for sure. And we're getting things for us as well, sometimes that we want and sometimes we're not sure that we wanted them, but we get them nonetheless. So let's talk about recognizing one's own achievements, Viola, because I think one of the things that we talked about is that it took you a little while to be able to stand in those shoes and say what a kick-ass investor you were.
Well, I did mention my misspent youth, and that's because, as I was speaking to, there was a gentleman who did a presentation today on sperm motility. This thing was so bloody fascinating. That's because I'd originally wanted to be a genetic engineer. But when I became pregnant as a teenager and then my child died, I was relegated to the dregs of life. And in fact, there were those that were trying to arrange a marriage for me to just get me out the bloody way, because I was now an embarrassment. You got pregnant, your kid's dead, who wants you? You're a pain in the ass, get out the way. However, I had to pretend to be contrite. All I knew is I must kick ass, make money, and make these people pay. Which I did. So there are ways in which we all deal with imposter syndrome, and I really didn't want to be left out of the pantheon of fabulousness. I truly believed I deserved and wanted to be there, but I was very afraid to be seen to be too busy, shoving with the elbows. So we do what many people do, which is find a business partner with whom you can hide behind and push. I had a business partner who was many years younger than me, and our gender relationship, male-female, I thought I was in the right place at the right time doing the same things, but I had learned my lesson from the wealthy playboy who had annoyed me, and it took me a while to learn those lessons. These are the lessons that we now use in the toolbox of how can women occupy in the space of investment, finance, and funding in a way that the psychology and the culture is not a problem, but is instead an enhancement. And I hope I'm answering your question correctly. But that's how I ended up here, and not by myself. The powerful support of other brilliant women, many of them like my colleagues here, are what helped me get through, plus my mum.
Awesome. What did you say? The pantheon of
Fabulousness.
Pantheon of fabulous. Who wants to be part of this pantheon
do.
of fabulous? Right? Oh, man. All right. Let's talk about gaining confidence and conviction in one's own abilities. Meg, you talked a little bit about kind of that journey for you.
Yeah, so coming into the venture space, this was not, I didn't come from investment banking. I wasn't that very typical background. None of us are up here. But you see it a lot. And you see a lot of people who worked their way up, and they were investment bankers, and they were analysts, and they know all the things. And what are those things that they know that I don't know? So I went to business school, and I was like, okay. I went to Darden, and thought, maybe I'll learn some of those things that I always see in and around. Graduated from Darden and met my co-founder, and always had this in the back of my mind that we were going to invest, but didn't find the right way to do it within our business model. So we ran an accelerator program, but this accelerator program was working with Series A and B companies, and they're not like, here, take my equity. They're like, let me give you some cash. And we were happy to have the cash. But we continued to try. And I think that builds a lot of confidence, the continual failure and the continuing to find new solutions. So at one point we were doing safe notes. At one point we were doing, we knew where we wanted to get to. We just weren't exactly sure how to get there. Before we launched our fundraise, we built an angel network. It would not rival any of the angel networks on one of that you all know. It was like 12 people who were interested in national security, but that laid our track record, and that gave us a boost to be able to say, these 12 people have invested alongside us. We did the diligence on these companies. We made the decisions here. And then a few of those folks ended up coming in and being our anchor investors in our fund. So I think that really building a lot of that confidence, especially around things that the financial acumen is mystical, but it isn't actually hard. And then really figuring out what are those questions that you need to be asking along the way so that you are one step ahead. And turns out, if you're a curious person, if you're a person who really understands where you are actually investing in. I know government contracting better than most. I really understand the area I'm investing in. And therefore, I have a lot of confidence in that, and I can go back to that when I'm diligencing a company, when I'm looking at their balance sheet, when I'm making sure that their financial projections are anywhere in the ballpark of where I think they'll be, which is the answer is usually not. But then reps. And then getting the reps in. And so being able to join some of those angel networks, join some of those places that will help you get some of those reps and help you get that baseline acumen, because the rest of it you're going to learn along the way, and you're going to ask really dumb questions, and people will sometimes laugh and sometimes not. But more than likely they will be very kind and answer your dumb question, and then you will realize it's a dumb question like 4 days later and cringe. But you've then learned and you've grown, and you have the confidence that next time you're having a conversation around IP, you know the right questions to ask and how to steer the conversation.
Well, and one of the things you told us too was that you were running this business. It was going pretty well, and people were coming back and asking you to be on their cap table. So it wasn't just, okay, I can go figure this out, but there is something of value here that you and your co-founders are bringing to the table.
Yeah, we found a really particular niche in the marketplace where the U.S. federal government is highly regulated. It's if you want to liken it to a game, it's a game. The big players know how to play the game. The little guys do not. We want to help the little guys learn how to play the game. But it is a highly regulated industry, and there are a lot of barriers to entry. And we built a team that were experts in that industry. Myself, I was at the U.S. Small Business Administration. My one of my co-founders at Decode Capital, was 15 years at CIA, and then worked at the QUIC, which is the interface between CIA and In-Q-Tel, the venture investing arm of the intelligence community. And then my other co-founder was was doing rapid prototyping of emerging tech. So we collectively had a lot of the knowledge of like a very, very specific industry. And therefore we are very valuable for companies who want to grow in that industry. And so being able to be that value add has been really helpful in our deal flow, in our building, and then being able to pull in limited partners as well.
So getting comfortable with our own value add, knowing that we are good at things and we can learn it if we don't know it already. And then Heidi, you talked about kind of recognizing the importance of understanding the capital stack more broadly as part of your journey as an investor, and actually a bigger mission for you with other women investors as well.
Yeah, as I mentioned, I didn't come from the investment background. There's a unique quality that I believe more women have than men. And bear with me, because you might be thinking, does this woman take issue with men? I will celebrate men too. But there was this New York Times article years ago that spoke about, it did a survey. So it surveyed women, particularly moms. Any moms in the audience? And it asked women if they were experts in breastfeeding. And to no one's surprise in the audience, women were like, yeah, like I have 3 kids, or, I did the thing, but I'm no expert. And then it also surveyed men. And probably also to no one's surprise, all the men were like, yeah, I'm for sure an expert in that. And it just, so I am going to be gendered about this because there is a common denominator here. And, you see it play out in the workspace too. So of course, before I joined New Theory Ventures, there I was as a consultant, just like quarterbacking all the things, just putting points on the board. And I went on maternity leave, and my now CEO called me and was like, hey, you said before you went on maternity leave, like I'm bottlenecking stuff and I should get a chief of staff, like would you do it? I was like, I don't know, like I have a new human, right? But of course, my initial knee-jerk reaction was, oh, well, I'm no expert. I was just like doing the things. And went to, talk to my husband about it too. Now I will celebrate men. To my husband's credit, was like, you know a lot more than you give yourself credit for. And so went back to the CEO and I was like, I'm really interested in it. But again, caveated it. I don't know anything about finance. I don't have a financial background. And I want to be super upfront about that. And she was like, sounds great. Yep. Like worked with you for 6 months. Got it. And so I say all that to just like kind of underpin what everybody's saying here. And for me, no, I didn't know anything about capital stacks. I didn't know anything about venture deals. I didn't know how to do deals. And we do, right, like unlike Meg, who's doing Series B, some C, wow. Right, like that's a different diligence process. For us at the time, we were doing seed limited Series A. And so I'd get asked questions about, what do I think about the investment? And I always would be like, well, to be like, I think this, but I'm not a practitioner of this. And one day my CEO said to me, like, enough. It's early stage. There's barely any revenue. There's literally like not much due diligence other than like the executive's track record. And like, does the deck they put together that you had 30 minutes to review match their, tax filings, if you can get into their data room? And do you believe that there's a white space and that this individual person can execute on it? And that wouldn't have happened for me had I not had a female CEO, because there were plenty of male partners in the ecosystem talking about like, well, how complicated it is, and have you diligenced this and diligenced that? And so I think just sort of getting in there and reading the paperwork that I had access to and having conversations with people who were more willing to be transparent about it and educate me along the way is what made a difference.
All right, so we've talked about investing as personal growth. We've talked about investing as part of a larger mission. Let's talk about collaboration and supporting others. So each of you talked about the fact that although finance can be seen as a cutthroat endeavor, that we haven't found it that way in our own personal experience. So Viola, talk to us about collaboration and just connecting with women in this space. What has that been like for you?
I think I want to also add to what you were saying, because from a collaborative perspective, one of the things that I found was the sanitation you have to put yourself through before you collaborate is highly important. And this is one of the reasons why Kate and I created the toolbox. I noticed that at the CEO level and with leadership that I worked with, myself included, Your behavior with your finances at home and your level of confidence around these things will accidentally transmute into the culture of the businesses that you're building and the relationships that you are developing. So that ability to step back and take a very keen look at yourself or have the collaboration of other smart human beings is highly necessary to the success of any business that involves more than one human being opening their mouth. You must have this in place. The older I get and the better I become at self-knowledge, the more confident I am at bringing my humanity to the table within a financial and business setting, because I have learned to realize that competence and growth look different on different people. I have learned that I truly do have a level of unconscious competence. That is a difficult thing to admit to, especially in a room. But I had to look back and not use a comparison against people not doing so well, but to basically take a look at how well have I performed against the goals I set. And frequently, we have often outperformed them. But in trying not to appear as if it was too good to be true, we will downplay that nonsense and make very self-effacing comments about how good it is. This is now in the rear-view mirror for many of us. The world is getting too small to get away without nonsense. Women, stop it. So in terms of collaboration, to get your ego out of the way, to be very clear on who you're serving, and wanting to ensure that queen making is a collaborative activity. It's not about, yay, look at me, I'm the winner, nah, nah, nah. I would rather be second place sometimes, but with a lot more than I had before. But to know that as the stalking horse behind the first winner, you're the one to beat, and I am exercising. So collaboration it's almost a contact sport, isn't it? Oh, there you go.
All right. And both Meg and Heidi talked about finding others willing to share and teach and connect along your journey. So share a little bit about that.
God, I can't stop thinking about this. She's just talking to me right now.
I promise you, no. It's all of us.
I am the self-deprecating in the room. No, I like in everything where you are part of the minority in a group of people. We are in GovCon, we're in tech, we are in venture. And we are often the only women in the room. But my experience has not been, like you said, one of that feel like people are pushing us down, feel like people are pushing us to the side predominantly. I think we have attracted amazing people around us. We've attracted, we've mentored, we have been mentees to just amazing folks in and around these industries. And it is I was doing I was talking to a group of folks that are in the military looking that maybe they might leave, and they were asking me about how did you get here? And it's like, there's 5,000 people who helped get me here. I can't tell you all of those people, but I can. But if you have the time, I can tell you exactly how they helped along the way. And we have found that women in our network have opened up their Rolodexes, made LP intros. I would hesitate to say far more than men, but have really, really come to be part of that mentor-mentee relationship for us, in a way that I think Heidi said it too, which is we came to the table saying, I don't know what I'm talking about. Can you help me? And many of these women said, yeah, you kind of do know what you're talking about, but I'll still help you. And it's been a real learning experience, I think, both for myself and my co-founders, on how do you continue that network? How do you leverage that network, and really how do you build on that network? And like I said, it's not just women, but the collaboration in this space is incredible, and you need everyone, or you need all the good energy Like the people who are stuck in their ways and stodgy and they're like, these have been my LPs for 60 years. Like throw them out, they're not gonna help you. Great, fine. Find those people who are gonna be in your corner, who when you're really stuck on something, you can call them. And that's both for diligence, it's for fundraising, but it's also for deal flow. And it is, I think when I entered the market, all we heard about was, oh my God, these tiger deals, you're never gonna get in. Turns out they're awful, one. But two, the collaboration within the network is so phenomenal that we know a lot of people who are investing in and around the same space, and it actually isn't that competitive. So aside from a few bigs, they want, especially value-add investors, they want you in the round. They want your expertise. I mean, you are now in some ways free labor for them. So like they do want you on their cap table. And we found that it was, we live and breathe in this collaborative space. That's where we play. And it's really, really played out in the people that I think we attract and the people we keep in our networks, and in the people we go and ask for help with constantly. I mean, even I'll give one last example. When we started to build the fund, I reached out to so many of my Darden classmates. Like, I had this model that I was like, here's our fund structure. This is how this is gonna work. And my classmates were at Cambridge and were at all of these like fancy schmancy places. And they ripped it apart and they built it back up and they helped in so many ways. So it's classmates, it was professors, it doesn't stop there. It's like you have to keep collaborating, keep building that network and pulling people in.
Well, and I think what's so important is you're talking about how people have helped you, but one of the things that you said to us in the prep call was that one of your important things that you want others to take away is to network and be an amazing advocate for others. So you really pay that forward as well.
Yeah, I take a lot of, Darden is an amazing place. Love Darden. But the entrepreneurship track is hard. It's hard no matter where you are. If you're at Darden, if you're at if you're at HBS, like entrepreneurship is hard. I had 2 calls with Darden students this week, and it's on entrepreneurship, it's on venture capital, because everybody took my call, and I asked dumb questions, and I will continue to do that because everybody took my call, and those are people who, one, maybe they'll work for me one day, maybe I'll work for them one day, but it's all part of the network, and I didn't build this on my own. I know better than that, and these folks, hopefully I'll be a small part in shoving them in the entrepreneurship track instead of consulting.
Just saying, as an example.
As an example.
And Heidi, you talked about that by investing and particularly being collaborative, we can exponentially generate a return on purpose and impact, and that investing in quote unquote diversity is not the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do. So talk to us about collaboration along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are plenty of studies out there that show that women outperform our counterparts.
Woo!
Woo, woo. I think, Viola, you spoke to your experience as a Black woman. I can't speak to that experience, obviously, but I think for every woman who's holding cash and has to produce a return on it, there is that feeling of you've got one shot. You don't have multiple shots, right? It's that kind of adage of, oh, we put that one woman in the leadership position that one time and it didn't go so well, so tried that, been there, done that. And like that, we're not through that mentality yet. So there's certainly that, like we've got to produce a return on investment, and we're just hardwired to also produce a return on impact. I would say on the competition versus collaboration, one thing that I've been really kind of fascinated by since moving to Richmond a year ago is how wealth and investment is concentrated in this country geographically. And you know the stats better than I do, but it's something like 80% of all venture capital is concentrated in California, New York, Texas, and Massachusetts. And when I hear people talk about the competitiveness of trying to get on a cap table, it's usually sort of in the Bay Area. And what I think is really exciting about where we're moving as entrepreneurs, as funders, as venture capitalists, as innovators, is kind of decentralizing that innovation. Because I do notice in either, what's the right word for it? Affinity mindsets, right? Like myself, I'm really interested in investing in women, or geographical communities who are pooling capital, that there is that more innate collaborative approach because you're almost on this other team that's trying to pull the money away from that sort of David and Goliath team. So that's what I think is exciting about collaboration that we're starting to see across the nation.
And I love what you said before, which is there's room for all of us. So, of course, I'm sure there's a lot more we could talk about up here, and we will. But before I give our wonderful panelists time to do a closing remark or something to take away, I would like to open up for questions. If anybody in the audience has a question for one of these brilliant women. Yeah.
Hold on a minute. Do you want this then?
Hi. So this one's more so directed at Meg. What is an example of a woman-owned company that you have funded for like military purposes?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we've only invested in 5 companies so far. And there are women on the cap table, but I could give you a lot of companies that are doing really cool things that we're diligencing in cybersecurity, in AI. We have a couple companies. I was meeting with a CEO this week who is amazing, and I would love, she's still too early in the funding for us, but she's doing data fabric, essentially, and her key targets are in the United States Army.
Okay.
Investors, because we share the same experience. I think there's this really, I don't want to say this. I guess you guys are such exemplars of an alternative mode, but I think we still labor under a bit of a sort of false notion that it's not okay for women to think about spending money that way, right? In other words, first of all, women have their own money or are married to money, which they need to just say, yes, thank you, I'm going to spend it this way, or even better, inherit it from their mothers or whatever. You have resources, and you don't need permission to ask to do this. So I feel like I'd like to have you talk about, I think, men can be your friends. Increasingly, they are. I think we are a fortunate group because we are finally we are now at a point where there are men who are actually happy to take your advice. I mean, I'm a member of CAN here in Charlottesville, and my husband wanted to join because I was having such a good time, you know? And so I think there's this other side of the coin, which is owning what we know, owning what we can accomplish, owning that we have room, and not even permission, but room and the ability to make decisions and make stupid decisions just like the men do regularly.
Oh,
Amen.
Okay? So I want to just get that out there because I think that's what we're all about, right? Okay.
Can I just, I feel like you are in my heart and in my mind. I say all the time, like, we are socialized as young girls to give, right? You got to be giving. If you're not generous, then you're not a good girl. We are socialized to spend. We're accountable for over 80% of all consumer, decision making in America, but we are not socialized to grow. And the second we start talking about it, then society has a whole slew of adjectives that come with it that are negative, right? I'm deemed greedy by many people because I want to talk about money. I want to talk about how to make it. I want to talk about how to grow it. I want to talk about how to spend it. I want to buy the building. I want to buy a purse. And that's okay. I'm not a bad person for it, but more and more, it's like, how can you gather your girlfriends, your women friends? And I should also say, I have plenty of male mentors and friends who have don't call me greedy because I'm up to these things. And in fact, teach me how to make my money make more money. So thank you to them too.
My story is
but yeah.
exactly the same as yours. But there is a particular group of men that enjoy my company. Don't get this wrong, people. Older, white, Southern men. I have spent so much time and enjoyed their wisdom. I like anyone who's not me. It's a perfect scenario. I cannot say that I've had too much negativity with men. I was raised by a father who convinced me that functional arrogance would always be my friend, because he said, if you can prove, it's all right to think you're better than other people if you can prove it. And as a black female, you will always be forced to work 3 times as hard. Your worst day is someone else's best. You're a winner, baby. And this is helpful. But as you get older and that crumbles away after you realize the lessons you need before you get into business are about your ability to manage your failure cycles in such a way that they either become monetizable, or you could create modules, they can be transmitted, or you use them correctly. So we've said it. Women, bouncers of the planet, can't come here without us, somehow. We will co-collaborate, co-compete, because it's for the world. It's not for the division. So I love what you're saying. And you too, Gail.
And as a co-founder of a women's angel network, you probably know that a lot of accredited investors that are men tend to get involved in angel investing, and women are not as large a percentage of that asset class. And what does that mean? We just need to invite more women in. So, this is part of what we're here to do.
But it is changing. It's not good. The stats aren't good, so don't get excited. But it is changing. It's trending upward, and you see it too in things like J.P. Morgan and Morgan Stanley are putting huge focuses on women, because we are going to be the wealth generators and the people that they're going to make a bunch of money off of because in the future. And they know that. They're seeing that trend, and they are putting money behind it because they see it coming. That's it. Sorry.
So we could stay here all day and listen to these wonderful, beautiful, amazing women. I want to give each of them one sentence to leave us with, and then I'll let you express your appreciation to each of them. Not yet. One sentence. Okay, Heidi, go. I told you I was going to ask this.
Ask the question. Put the voice that says it's a stupid question to bed in the back of your head. Put your ego aside. If you don't know, ask the question. And if somebody's a jerk, go ask the question to somebody else.
She took mine? No. But I would say come at this both very, very powerfully and very, very humbly. Be someone who is going to be a constant and consistent learner, because there's not a person that you meet day in and day out that you can't learn something from. And especially in this space, there's so many things to learn all the time that I think that's been one of the best lessons I've had.
Money and power are occasionally synonymous. If you want more power, get closer to the purse strings. If you handle the money, you control the decisions. You control the decisions. The perception of power lies in your hands. Do not shy away from power and money.
And I will leave you with, if somebody asks you to moderate a panel at TomTom, take the opportunity.
Thank you all so much. We have a 15-minute break right now, and then I invite you to get up, grab a drink, grab a bite to eat. We're going to regather here at the 45 past for our founders portion.